Oh, there's a farm. It's back in action. That means A Podful of Saints +1 is back on your big screens, or your little screens if you're going around with one of those crest things. Right, it's involving myself, David Tavener. Somewhere over there we have Lee Wood.
David, how are you, my friend? Are you well?
I'm very well, Lee. It's good to see you back in your rightful place, running the club shop there. And we also have sitting over there, Jake Ellacott.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dave. I'd say evening. You could be watching this any time of day.
Yeah, we're recording this around about 6 o'clock on Monday night, the 8th of February, 2020, 2 days after City returned to action after a few weeks layoff enforced by the league. And we didn't return to winning ways. It was a 2-2 draw. Actually, no, we'll come to that in a minute. I'd like to touch on first John Feneley, who sadly passed away last week. Who wants to run with that one first?
Lee, do you want to start? I know you were, well, I think everyone was a big fan of John, but I know you and the AD 43 boys enjoyed a great sort of tribute day out to him a couple of years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Fenners is that everything about him smacks as though he shouldn't be involved in the football club at any point, because he couldn't hear, he couldn't see, but he was the most passionate and the most loyal person behind the scenes. The stories, I mean, my God, the stories. And he used to sort of take great pride in telling me he was going out to Magaluf or Tenerife and trying to grab a granny, in his words. You know, just the enthusiasm for the game though as well. And he loved the players. He loved them with every ounce of his being. And, you know, he will be sorely missed. You only have to look at the outpouring of support that the club have got over the last week. Just amazing. And he will be greatly missed.
Jake?
Yeah, like you said, I think the thing that struck me was the outpouring of sort of sadness and the amount of wonderful tribute from former players, former staff, Jimmy Gray, Graham Golds, all our physios from that sort of period, and also a lot of fans as well. Like, obviously, a lot of supporters don't necessarily have a lot of contact with those behind the scenes in the dressing room, but it felt like, and it seemed like Fenner's interacted with so many fans, and it was just some brilliant stories. And it's just another terrible sort of moment in a terrible year and a half.
Yeah, he had a lifetime in football, didn't he? So one of the profiles of his life there online, and he really was, right from start to finish, involved in football. His final 19 years with us, and he said you can't beat being in the dressing room. He just loved the atmosphere, the camaraderie with the players and everything. So it's good he was able to have that right up to the end. I mean, 88 is not a bad innings at all, and it looks like he enjoyed most of it.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, you just got to compliment how committed he was to a club as well, all the way to the end.
Yeah. We also got to say farewell to a supporter. You might remember him, Lee. Michael Molyneux, known as Mole, who went mostly in the 80s and 90s, I think. Sadly passed away on the 31st of January. He'd been ill for a few years. A good friend of Andy Hammond. So a sad loss. So we send our condolences to Mole's wife, Kay, her daughter, Simone, and his sister, Caroline. Right, now we can turn our attention to Billericay. They're one of the clubs that are not in favour of a season continuing, so they furloughed all their players and put out 5 under-23 players in their starting lineup Saturday. In total, I think they only had 10 appearances between all of them, that starting 11. So are we happy with a point?
Can you be? Can you be? I mean, the club are going to look back at this game and see it as definitely 2 points dropped. But then you say that, Kevin Watson, I know relatively well from his time at Colchester and Luton. His sides are always well organised, and they may not be pretty, but they're certainly well drilled. But as you there, Tav, say, you know, the quality that they had on show is non-comparable to what we had on offer. And Ian's disappointed. You can see that in his post-match, you know. But the thing is that it's 2 points dropped and 2 massive errors, which led to their goals. So, yeah, it's bad day for the City.
Yeah, I can only agree. I thought, you know, first half was particularly poor from us. You know, Billericay took the lead and I didn't have many complaints. Second half, we fought back, looked a lot better. and probably actually towards the end should have gone for the kill instead of almost just hesitating at 2-1 and sitting back. And obviously, I think the most disappointing thing was actually the manner of the goals conceded, both absolute disasters at the back. The first, just a typical mix-up, and the second one, I mean, I was sat near Dave, who was lucky enough to come to a game, and
I'll let you in, Tabs.
It's in disguise.
And it was almost a sense of disbelief that shot had gone in. We couldn't believe it. We didn't understand how it happened until I saw the clip later on of, wow, how's that gone in? So really disappointing, both the goals. And I think, like you said, Lee, Ian Allinson was more than open enough afterwards about how disappointed he was. And I think that sums it up for everyone.
It was a free goal that got me equaliser. And I felt for that first goal, when Michael Johnson came out, he should have made himself big, gone for it with his chest, because if it's forward to put a foot up to get the ball, it would have been a free kick straight away. But he put his head down to half head it away, and he just made
it was a poor ball back to him, though, Tabs, as well, wasn't it? The defender's got to do better there.
The header back to him was weak. James Clotchy tried to take the play out, fouled him off the ball, and he failed to do that as well. It's comedy of errors.
The one thing for me as well is the amount of chances that are actually wasted. There were some really good deliveries into the box. Shakes, Jeffers in particular, had some, chances to nod us ahead. Listen, we can dwell on this as much as we like, but unfortunately, it's just one of those games when, going back to your issue, Tabs, of sort of seeing games out and being professional, and it's that thing where it's the balance between getting the result, playing nice football. Unfortunately, mate, you can't have both in this sort of world at the minute. And but it's a point, and we'll take that.
It's funny. I think we said during the game, Jake, we shouldn't be sitting back, and I didn't actually feel that we did sit back. I know you mentioned it there, but I didn't feel that we did, and that wasn't to blame for us losing. Losing with 2 points, it was a freak. That goal was an absolute freak. But what worries me more, you mentioned with 2 chances there, Lee, but Ricky Shakes one, the defender sort of left it first of all, which I think surprised him. He didn't expect that. But Jeffers one more disappointing, I think. But we only had 7 shots on target, and all 7 shots in the game, not even on target, which disappointing for that, really.
Yeah, I think we should have gone down there looking to, pepper the goal, really, because we didn't know what sort of team they had going out, and I think we probably should have been on it from straight off. But the first 20 minutes was quite even, and the Billericay kids, if you want to say that, I mean, it's quite disrespectful, really, because they did a great job. They certainly imposed themselves on the game, but it was poor in all areas, actually. Defensively with those mistakes. Midfield, I didn't think we ever really established ourselves in the centre of the pitch like we have done a couple of times, quite a few times this season. And the attacking third as well, just didn't do much, not enough creativity. And I did say to you, Dave, I wondered if David Noble could have come on, with 20 minutes to go with the lead, get that control in midfield. And sadly it wasn't to be. And in the end, it was 2 points dropped.
I will also pay tribute to Billericay, because once they went behind, being such an inexperienced side, their heads could have gone down, but they didn't throw a towel in after that, did they? It didn't come knocking on our door, but they didn't give in either. And full credit to Kevin Watson for that one, Lee.
Any positives to come out of the game? I mean, I thought Zane had flashes, looked quite attacking when he had the ball, but that was very sort of few and far between. But ultimately, fellas, apart from that, another goal for Sean. But anything else to take away from the game?
I think
said Zane had flashes. The bloke sitting next to me, here he is, he's on the screen there, spent 90 minutes saying, he's having a bad game. He's having a bad game.
I mean, to be fair, I think Zane was actually a marked man by Ian, wasn't he? Ian on the side of the pitch all game. It was just, Zane, what are you doing? Zane, what, So, I mean, there isn't many positives. I thought Ricky Shakes did okay, maybe a bit more defensively. But really, not much else to talk about. I suppose, like you said, Sean got a goal, and also always good to see Solomon contribute from midfield, although he probably should have got another one towards the end with that little chance he had where he didn't shoot. So no positives, but not really many positives at all. But I suppose we just
move on then, boys. Move on.
And like you said, Lee, it's a point in the bag, isn't it?
Well, we should be moving on to Tuesday night's game at home to Dulwich Hamlet. Do we know that it's definitely off? Dulwich said they aren't going to play.
Technically, I don't think so, because on the National League fixture list, it's still there, even though other games have been postponed because of the weather already. So I don't know really what's going on with that. So it might be a sort of find out Tuesday morning that it's definitely off by the league. So
Jacob, do the National League know what's going on, mate?
I think that's a good question, and probably not.
Well, we'll come on to them in a minute. They are a shambles at the moment. But as from our club's point of view, we've put nothing out there saying about this game against Dulwich. We should have been in touch with Dulwich saying, come on, are you coming or not? And confirm it, put it out to supporters. When our match against Bath the other week was off, a supporter only found out it was off through the podcast. There was nothing on the website, nothing on the website last week to say we were playing Billericay. Is the website in lockdown, Jake?
No, it's not. And I suppose I would say with the Dulwich thing would be, I suppose we can't really make any comment until the league give that final approval, because as Lee knows, that when you get it in with leagues, etc., they can be a bit funny about what you release first and what you post. So that's what I'd say about that. But you know, the whole general sense, the league generally just seems like, what is going on? Where's the organisation? Who's leading this?
To be fair though, Jake, you are part of 2 podcasts now, mate. So any sort of chance of you telling us what's going on in any of them?
They, you know, I don't really pay attention in any podcasts, so I sort of just
noticed that.
I sit here and look moderately pretty. So yeah, but I suppose also I'd say, you know, us on the media teams, us volunteers, we, you know, most of us know as much as every other supporter. We are sat here in the dark a lot of the time, thinking, are we
The way
going?
it should be, mate.
Yeah, I know, but you know, most of us are sitting here. Are we definitely not playing Tuesday? You know, even Billericay, a lot of last week, I wasn't sure if we were going to play, because it didn't feel like, when are the votes going to come in for the league? What's going to happen? So the whole situation is crazy.
Well, Lee said a few minutes ago, do the league know what's going on? Which is a great point, because a couple of weeks ago, they suspended the league because there was no funding coming into clubs. End of last week, there's no funding coming into clubs. Oh, yeah, but you're playing Saturday, say the league. What on earth's going on there?
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's the whole situation is just, I can't work out in my mind. I mean, the fact that all teams were playing, well, not all teams, but teams were playing Saturday, despite the situation, it appearing not being really any different to as it was 2 weeks ago.
Looks identical.
Yeah. The
only might as well come on to that, the funding issue and whatnot, and the lateral flow tests that are going to kick in. I look back at the government's notice when the first £10 million was put forward to keep football going at our level. On the 18th of October, they put out a press release at gov.uk, and there's no mention there that there's going to be any more money after that. So whether there's been discussions outside of a press release, I don't know, but it also didn't say in there it was only for 3 months, and yet press were reporting it within a couple of days that money is only for 3 months. Someone's selling porky pies along the way.
Yeah, I think the most concerning thing, from what I understand and what I've heard, is these meetings that are between government, National League, FA. There doesn't appear to have been any minutes or any records kept anywhere, from what I understand. I don't know if Lee, you've heard any different, but it seems like there's just no one actually knows whether it was 3 months, whether, you know, etc. And like you mentioned, the press did get a hold of that 3 month sort of idea. And generally, it's going slightly political, but this government generally will leak information to the press that it wants to. So it seems like that may have come from the government, and then from the National League side, it's sort of, well, the government haven't actually said 3 months in our meetings, so can we get away with it for longer? So yes, it's just a huge mess, isn't it?
Lee, what was
It's a huge mess. But the thing is, there have been meetings about meetings. And even though the National League falls under one general umbrella, I can assure you now that it's only because teams in the north and south, they sort of really pushed the whole cancellation and suspension through, because they were the one kicking off. They were teams which were saying they weren't going to travel or they weren't going to play. No one was making those noises in the Premier. That's why they continued. And also the National League, they have been begging, pleading for that extra promotion spot into the Football League for at least the last 15 years. They don't want to be upsetting the Football League now. There's absolutely no way they're going to be sort of suspending games and all of this sort of, you know, there are 2 separate sets of meetings going on. There has to be, because it does seem as though there's one rule for one and one rule for the other. We have got owners at our level ringing around other owners, trying to form some sort of alliance, trying to say, look, you know, we've got to keep the season going. You know, there's the integrity of the league to think of. That's well and good, but are these owners who are ringing each other up, are they going to be sort of forking out funding the other clubs along the way? Of course they're not. It is a mess. It is a mess. But as there have been conversations about the fact that, was it for 3 months? And as you say there, Tavs, there's no record of that, mate. You know, there's no record of that. People are now sort of trying to set the rhetoric, aren't they? They're trying to sort of create the agenda for themselves. This is what we believe, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, you can't blame the clubs for that. They're looking after number one. Unfortunately, the governing body, the National League, they're in a hard place, mate. And I can't see this getting fixed anytime soon.
Well, another stick which the clubs are trying to bash the government with, if you like, is to say it costs £14 million to furlough all the players in the 3 divisions, and we're only asking for 10 million again, like we had for the previous 3 months. But where's this 14 million come from? Clubs simply do not declare their budgets. They do not declare their individual player wages. So to come up with a figure of 14 million, which came up pretty blooming quickly, I'd love to know where it's come from. Any idea?
If you think they're going to need another 10 million to have another 3 months, which would take us to the end of March, maybe. But the season's going to be going on into May.
So 29th of May is booked for.
Right, exactly. So what happens at the end of March, beginning of April? Do we now have another situation where it's stopped for a fortnight until we get the last 10 or so games of the season done? You know, it's just bizarre. But this should have all been sorted out in the summer. When that first handout was given out, there should have been someone saying, well, hang on a minute, what happens after the 3 months? Because ultimately, someone said, right, you know what, we're going to give you this 3 months, it'll all be over, all this thing will be settled sort of down, and then we can go from there. The season will be back up and running, fans can come in, off you go. But I don't think anyone had the foresight to actually really put that scenario into the plan.
You mentioned towards the end of last week, Jake, when we were talking, the league's going to hand out lateral flow tests to all the clubs. And it looks like it's going to happen. You talk about it in a second, but really that's just a sideshow. It's the funding that is the main point.
Yeah, it is the main funding. You know, a lot of clubs initially, you know, earlier this month were using the lack of testing, etc., and putting it as part of their reasoning, which of course they're, you know, welcome to do so based on health and safety grounds. But it has come to the fore that the financing is the big issue, and it does feel like the National League certainly want to use the testing to at least maybe give them a couple more weeks to try and work something out, maybe get a few more clubs to, you know, keep playing. I know that the Dorking chairman / owner has gone on some brilliant rants on his Twitter feed, on the Dorking Wanderers Twitter feed, if you want to watch those. Apparently they're quite full of swearing, so be careful. But also the Ollie Bayliss, the Three Counties radio journalist, is keeping a tally of the clubs. And it does look like in the south that it's going to be very, very tight in terms of the votes for yes, keep playing, or no. So be interested to see where we get to.
Well, at the moment, it looks like 9 say yes to continuing, and 6 saying no, end of season, including Billericay in that. And Ian Hall, in a break with tradition, said something interesting this morning. He said, for the integrity of the league, as if it's got any integrity left, clubs should keep playing and do what Billericay done, put the under-23s out there. But you get to a joke situation where the club's going for promotion. They're going to somehow get the money to put their big team out there. And not everyone's going to get away with it like Billericay did. You're going to get some stupid scores. How does that help the integrity of the league?
Yeah, I think that's a definite issue. I mean, I know that Dave Boggins, the Hemel owner, you know, I'm sure he's a friend of this podcast, was on Three Counties non-league show Sunday afternoon, and he actually talked about how he's happy to keep playing, not because Hemel haven't really got anything to play for at the minute, because, you know, they're solidly mid-table, but because he budgeted for a season without fans, and he saw any grants as a bonus on that budget. So that sort of helps explain maybe why their playing squad has not been the greatest this season, because they went with sensible expectations, and he's happy to keep playing because they've said it at that, and this, you know, he's happy to keep going. So it's very interesting. And of course, the Concord chairman as well, Ant Smith, on social media said last week that his squad have taken a budget cut to keep playing. So yes, clubs are changing their opinions and sort of swaying, but the core ones that don't want to play in the Conference South seem to be Dulwich, Slough, and Bath City at the minute. So,
what you have
What's
to,
our opinion over there? I'm sorry, Lee. Yeah, no, you go first.
I was just going to say, fellas, you know, there's a very massive underlying factor that everyone seems to be missing, is that people are still losing their lives. You know, this is an ongoing process. People are still losing their lives and their livelihoods. You know, the governing bodies are telling the clubs to, you know, obey by the laws of the game. The laws of nature are hardly comparable here, fellas. You know, people are losing their lives, for crying out loud. So something has to stop. Something has to give. And, you know, I don't know about you fellas. Are we right to be playing football now?
Well, last time we were on here, we were united in an opinion of no. I still say we should not be playing because of COVID, danger of passing it around, and also clubs are really risking their future to keep playing. What about you two?
I mean, I think generally football, like you say, really isn't that important at the minute, isn't it? And that sort of, you know, I haven't changed from that. I suppose the only positive is the testing now from a health and safety perspective for at least playing squads will be an improvement at this level. But there's still that underlying, you know, theme of, is it really important at the minute? Should we be playing, you know, in the grand scheme of things, the way things are? So yeah, it is a very difficult situation.
Lee?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I've said pretty much what I've got to say there. You know, you can speak to as many clubs as you like, and they're all going to give you a different. They're going to give you the answer in terms of their position within the football club. But then you ask them again in terms of, you know, their position as a dad or a mum or a brother or sister, then you'll get a different answer. Of course you will. So, you know, there's just madness. Ongoing madness.
I would also say that the biggest losers almost in all of this are the supporters and the fans of these clubs. You know, we don't, you know, these fans don't know whether they're coming or going, who they're, you know, whether they're playing, whether they're not, whether their club is going to play again this season, whatever they're doing, whether even if their club's going to exist next year, some of the situations in terms of financing. So, you know, supporters are really losing out in all of this, and it's just difficult for, I do really feel for fans that just have no idea what's going on.
When the club put out a notice, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, saying about suspension, he signed at the bottom of a letter from a whole load of people saying that we want to continue the season, which is totally against everybody I know within the club. So I don't know where they got that opinion from. Do we know which way the club is actually going to vote on it? I think we can guess.
No, but I know that Saints, well, they're having meetings with Saint City Trust, aren't they, per the statement last week. So, I mean, I don't know if we'll hear anything more from that, because obviously there's supporters on the City Trust board that might be able to share a bit more information when that happens. But yeah, it's sort of, it just, well, I think, like you said, you get the general idea where the club will vote and which way, but we wait to see. And I don't suppose, unless all the clubs come out themselves, I don't suppose the voting and the way it's voted will necessarily ever be publicly revealed by the league.
Right, time to move on to another subject. I don't think there's much point in previewing Saturday's game against Tonbridge at the moment when so much is up in the air. Anniversaries and birthdays. You shouted out happy birthday to Nobby on Saturday. He turned, what was it, 65? Oh, no, 39. Later this week on the 11th, James Colocci, much fresh-faced, of course, much younger, 27. And on this coming Saturday, is it, the 13th, the 5th anniversary of Ian Allinson's first game as manager of St Albans City. How do we view his 5 years?
I would say as fairly successful myself. Sort of, it started on a very high note with the relegation survival, and it's not, you know, it's not been brilliant all the time since, but we've had some great moments in that time. What do you think, Lee?
I think on the whole, it's been relatively productive. I think what Ian has brought to the squad has been a massive professionalism. Just the way, and obviously the caliber of players that he can attract now, and obviously the way we play football. When we can play football and we've got the players to do so, we've played some amazing stuff. Yes, the relegation battle winning 8 out of the 11 games or whatever it was great and it was entertaining. But let's not do that again, please, for crying out loud. But we have, I think what Ian has brought has been stability, has been a high quality of player and a certain professionalism, not this season notwithstanding, but professionalism on the pitch. And I look forward to another 5 years more.
Funny, that run when we beat the Drop, that was incredible. It was absolutely fantastic. We were dead and buried, and we got out of it by smacking in a load of goals. We weren't sneaking results here and there. And throughout his reign, he's had spells like that where we have scored a lot of goals. So this season, when we're doing well, we can hardly buy a goal. I know Sean's got 11 now, but it's the opposite of what Ian's done, really. He's just really tight defence this season. Yeah,
and it sort of indicates, actually, that he's sort of changed his style of playing, sort of changed his approach tactically a little bit. And, you know, he's a brilliant manager, and I think a lot of clubs are still jealous that we do have him. I think a lot of clubs at this level and even lower in the National League would happily bring Ian on board. I think he's done a great job, and I think the highlight for me is the Carlisle United game in the FA Cup. It was such a great day for the club, and it was just brilliant to be there.
It's funny, isn't it? We've won very little under him, really. But like Lee said, we would all class it as a successful 5 years.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, though, you seem to forget that I think the one good trait of a manager is that their willingness to adapt to situations. When he hasn't had the money, because he's publicly gone on record saying that his playing budget hasn't increased in the 5 years that he's been here. Right? So to constantly put out a team which is competitive and at times very exciting to watch as well. You know, any good club would be desperate to have him as their boss. And we are very, very fortunate. And there are times when it hasn't gone his way, and he'll be the first person to know that. But you know what I like about him is that he's always the first person to stand in front of the camera, you, Jake, or the other 10 media team members that you've got going around there now, and say, well, you know what, it's my fault. I picked the team, I picked the formation, I picked the tactics, lay it all on me. And when it does go right, it's all on the players. It's their, they're the ones that went out there. And for him to sort of, he's very savvy and he's a very, very intelligent man. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. And I think that we're going to be very, very lucky to keep him.
I don't know how good your memory is, Jake, but years ago, I used to interview the manager as well. And he was great. You can put a point to him. It can be the opposite to what he's expecting or what he thinks. He will accept it and he will answer it. He won't get the huff. It doesn't have to be a bland interview. You can take a different view. It doesn't even have to be a point about the match. If it's something to do with football in general, he will answer it. He's a football man.
I was actually just going to say that, all three of us have spent a lot of time talking to Ian, both on and off camera, off the record, on the record, etc. And he's always been brilliant to talk to. I think he's a very nice person as well, which again, something when you look at some of the other managers in our division, I think we're very lucky to have him. And I think fans as well, I think he's a very popular figure with supporters. Fans trust him. And we saw that last season to some extent. They still backed him, even though when he was struggling with the team. And I think we're very lucky to have him. Dave, what's his sort of win record like as manager compared to others? I know we were talking on Saturday.
Here we go. Stat attack. Here we go.
He's actually one of our longest serving managers in quite a while as well. So,
well, as we mentioned in the last podcast, because we haven't really had many games since then, he has achieved 100 wins now in his 237 games. So that's not too bad. His points per game record is quite interesting. He's on 1.49 from his 190 league games. Colin Lippiatt did 114 league games and he's 1.5. So he's just, it's pretty much up with him. Funny enough, one's below him is David Howell. So and then above Colin Lippiatt, you've got Golds and Gray. It's all recent managers tucked in together there.
Wow, I would not have predicted that Gray and Golds had a better win record than Colin. So,
game. 1.6. Hang on, if I look at the right column without 1.52 against 1.49. It's not a great thing, isn't it?
One thing I would say to supporters, the general is, yes, Ian is a very good manager, and not mentioning any names, but we've had some rubbish as well. We've had some absolute rubbish. I'm not mentioning any names.
Lee, I'll turn the camera around. You can look at the list. There you go.
Oh God.
Here we go. Happy days. Well, that's it, really, isn't it?
I think so. I think
Do
so.
we want to do a prediction Saturday if it goes ahead?
I'd say
That's a prediction within in itself, isn't it, though, Tabs?
yeah. If it's on, 3-1 Saints.
Oh, there's lack of faith in our defence now, Jake. I mean, we're one dodgy game, and you throw the towel in.
I'm gonna go 2-0 City. I'm gonna go 2-0. I don't think we're gonna have to leave the podcast without mentioning the new official podcast, Jacob. Give it a plug, mate, because you know they're so nice to us. Come on, give it a plug.
It's on the club YouTube. I'm not on it every week. I was just on it on the first episode, so I'm sure. I mean, I don't supporters really already have enough of me, so that's what they needed.
We've had enough.
We concur.
Yeah, more Jake Ellacott is what you need in your lives. So, yeah, so good, you know that. But I mean, have we had any?
Will
comments?
there be more episodes? Are they going to be sort of a more frequency?
Yes, I think there's some more episodes coming up relatively soon, maybe this week or next week. So, but I'm not on those ones, so I'm not an expert on those ones. They've dumped me already, unlike you guys.
Well, I was going to say, you know, put in like a good word for us. Tabs and I can go on there and put our wallowing in a world of heartfelt nonsense, mate. So
We haven't dumped him. It was a split decision, but we didn't dump him.
So good stuff then, fellas. Good stuff.
Oh God, oh dear. So
Good to see you both again.
what was that, Dave?
Good to see you both again. We're back up and running again.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's going, we'll probably be back. What again in 2-3 weeks, maybe more. When are we playing next?
Yes.
Oh dear.
Well, stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, and if you do want to get in contact, email the address in the description below. Isn't that right, Dave?
Yeah, when I can find it. Yeah. Put it on there.
This is as slick as ever, fellas. I have to say, good job, good job, boys.
Brilliant. Well, I guess it's time to say goodbye. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you all soon. Bye bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Laters.